Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, refuse my mother entry to your horse track? Don't expect access to our personal road. Be an awful landlord, I'll become your boss's boss. Allow your visitors to honk when they get there? Shame for you. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Refuse my mother entry to your horse track? Don't expect access to our personal road. My granddad used to own a piece of land next to a horse racetrack. Their land almost surrounded my granddad's except for him having access to a heavily trafficked public road. The racetrack was laid out in such a way that their exercise track was placed north of my granddad's land while the main track with a stadium was placed to the south. Way back when the racetrack was built, they had asked my granddad if they could transport their horses across his land. There was already a maintenance road in place, and as they only moved their horses, he didn't really mind as they also supported the local village. As a small thank you for this, they allowed him and his guest to watch the races for free. Normally it cost around $5 in our local currency, not that much, but it allowed him to take me and all my cousins to watch the horses for free. Anyhow, fast forward a couple of years and my granddad passed away. My mother, who inherited the land, tried to bring her grandchild, my niece, to the racetrack to see the horses just as my granddad used to. At the counter she is told that she has to pay for admission, not really that big of a deal as she thought that they didn't know that she now owned the land. Afterwards, however, when she writes to the track to rectify the situation, they tell her that she won't be admission free as it was a one-time deal they had struck with my granddad that now is off. Enter the petty revenge. A few months later, when we had planned to cut down some of the trees for lumber, my mother told the contractors to accidentally leave 1 or 2 logs across the maintenance road. The racetrack, now having to load their horses on trolleys as they had to use the busy public road instead of our maintenance one, almost immediately sent an email to my mother apologizing and offering her that same deal as my granddad had received if we would remove the logs. She only informed them that the one-time deal they had struck with my granddad was off. In the end, after some wrangling, we ended up with a deal where they now have to pay my mother around $400 every month in addition to her and her guests having free admission. Sometimes honoring the original deal is more profitable than renegotiating a new one. Could be a Ferengi rule of acquisition. Especially as we rarely went there even when it was for free, they lost out on maybe $100 a year on average before. Rule 10: Greed is eternal, Star Trek DS9, S3AP16. Their greed cost them my kingdom. To see the face of whatever minion in a power trip who wrote the original one-time deal must have put on when his own words came back to bit him. There's always someone trying to make their mark by saving money without any consideration as to why the money is being spent in the first place. I was thinking of how entertaining that must have been when their face blanched. Mom is a shrewd businesswoman. If the track had asked to move the logs, she could have been extra petty and take payment for having moved the logs but still deny them the use right of the road, saying that the $400 per month is for having moved the logs. Using the road is an extra $500. So silly of them. Did they think that your mom would honor her dad's side but not hold them to theirs? They didn't think that far ahead. They wanted that few dollars right now so badly, they got blind with greed. So many companies are doing this now and not even hiding it. Could be a right hand doesn't talk with the left sort of thing. Person handling the tickets only knew about the free tickets and had no idea how much money this is saving the rest of the business. I love this story. It's always great to hear when bullies get their comeuppance and have to give more than they received in the first place. Not sure that's petty, lol, more like sweet victory. Yeah, you might be right, the original idea, blocking the road, was petty, the rest was just a lap of honor. I like your mother. She knows how to negotiate. Be an awful landlord, I'll become your boss's boss. I live in a low-income apartment complex that is part of a housing organization that owns over 500 units in over 20 complexes, and counting, in my area. The property managers have been running wild since COVID. The manager of that department is related to 3 of her direct employees and an awful person. She is a miserable person with serious control issues. She likes to meddle in tenants' personal lives, and when she doesn't get what she wants will threaten eviction. I'm not entirely sure what I did to get on their bad side, but property manager boss, who I will refer to as Anus Face, has had issues with me for a couple of years. About a year and a half ago, I walked out of my apartment to find a tow notice on my car. After doing a little research, I found out that the apartment complex was illegally towing vehicles by not giving proper notice. I reached out to a friend in tears, and she reached out to some local city officials, and I was able to save my car from being towed, but this just infuriated Anus Face more. She made it her goal to invade my personal life for her weird jollies. So I got together with some other tenants and officially starting taking steps to begin a tenant union. About 4 months into my efforts, I found out that I had very early stage cancer that was able to be treated with surgery. I also had a very traumatic event happen in my home that required biohazard cleanup. Because of these events, I had to step back from organizing tenants. I have been told by a former employee that the property manager was happy that I was incapable of continuing my organizing efforts because of my health issues. After I stepped down, someone else took on a leadership role, and they were able to get community members to come together and start a coup. We rolled into the annual meeting where board elections are held 30 deep. We were able to get myself and a few other tenants elected to the board that night. The board is the organization's director's boss. I am now Anus Face's boss's boss. I just sent off an email to the director, chair, and co-chair detailing how Anus Face is committing fraud. I look forward to an update to see how this plays out. Me too. I love it when bullies get their comeuppance. I am also looking forward to seeing the inspirational dramatization win some cinema festival prizes in a few years. That sounds sarcastic, but I don't mean it that way. We all need more true stories in our lives about how organizing allowed the little guy to stick it to the man/Anus Face/delete as appropriate. Would love to be a fly on the wall when she got the news you're on the board now. She was at the annual meeting and saw the whole thing live. She stormed out after the vote, and I heard there was talk of quitting, but she won't go through with it. It was beautiful to see the look on her face when I smiled and waved to her after the vote. I saw her today, and she would not even look in my direction. OP has to recover from cancer and a biohazard in their home. Anus Face, phew, they're gone. Now, back to legally towing cars. 6 months later. Anus Face, how'd she get 3 levels above me? She was secretly grinding the whole time. Terrific turnaround, and happy to hear about your cancer treatment as well. I'm so glad you're doing better, and I'm so sorry for the need of a biohazard crew. That's a terrible blow on top of everything you were dealing with. I hope you're okay on that front too. Keep us posted on the fallout. Anus Face. You made me smile. And congratulations. Bah ha ha. What a dork. Great job, OP. I hate people like that. Took good ol' Anus Face down a tissue wipe or two. First, I'm so sorry for your cancer diagnosis, and hope that your surgery has gone well/does go well, and that you have many years ahead of you. Second, yes, I love this. Stick it to them. Allow your visitors to honk when they get there? Shame for you. We have a triplex rented out to a couple families across the street, and some construction workers. It's frigging Grand Central Station each morning and night. Cars pull up, people get in and out. Horns and honked each and every damn time. I think they use that address as a local drop-off/pickup point. I've asked, I've yelled, I've called the city. Nothing worked. Today I was off work this afternoon and was sitting on my porch smoking a joint when the vans started coming by. I grabbed my car keys, and every time someone honked, I'd set off the panic on my car alarm. I'd run out and make a big scene about how they must have hit my car to set off the alarm. It doesn't give off by itself. I would take pictures of both vehicles, license plate and driver too, and inspect my car for damage. I'd grumble back to the porch, muttering, if it drives funny, I'm taking it to my mechanic and filing an insurance claim tomorrow, and wait for the next honking asshole. Surprisingly, word must have gotten around, only 2 vans honked, and everyone else would go and knock on the door. So here I sit, stoned, giddy, feeling like I actually accomplished some great while high. Kinda wish another car would honk. /S. About 10 years ago, I had a next-door neighbor that got picked up 6 days a week between 5 to 6 a.m. Every morning next to my window honking to alert my neighbor their ride had arrived. I don't remember why, but one morning I wasn't having it. I ran down a flight of stairs in 2 seconds flat and told the driver off. She looked bewildered, and I'm not entirely sure she spoke or understood English, but I never heard honking in that complex again. Going through this with my upstairs neighbor and his weed dealer. He pulls into the driveway and honks his horn every couple of minutes until he comes out and buys some pot. It's 2023. Call or text, or God forbid, get out of the car and go knock on the door. That's too much effort. I'd lob a shaving cream-filled water balloon at the car and hide. I had a neighbor's son's friend park outside my house and honk his horn. The road narrows after my house. So I went out, jumped in the passenger side, popped my seatbelt on, and very excitedly asked him, "Where are we going?" He never did it again. An actor putting on a good performance. Bravo! When I lived in my first apartment in a mediocre neighborhood, I hated what my buddy from Detroit called the ghetto doorbell. We had places who had people that thought this was okay at midnight, or 2 a.m. I actually walked out one night at 11 p.m. and asked this crone of a woman if her legs were broken. When she looked at me puzzled and said no, I said, "Well, then why can't you give everyone trying to sleep some peace and ring the doorbell?" I got called a torrent of filthy words I didn't know 60 to 70-year-old women knew at the time. I got so sick of having to ask a person if they could please do the right thing they should have had the common sense to do all along, as if it was a favor that I was groveling for. Neighbor's son ride to high school would honk on arrival. Her bedroom was at the back of the house. She was oblivious and slept through it. I asked her to get it to stop, it didn't. I just started calling and waking her up to tell her that Michael's ride was there. Funny, she didn't like me waking her up. The honking ceased. This was 30+ years ago, with landlines and no caller ID. I had a neighbor kid who honked all the time. So, one day I charged up my air compressor, hooked up an air horn to it, put on some earmuffs, and honked it until the tank was empty. It worked. It must have honked for 10 minutes. An acquaintance lived in an apartment building back in the 80s. A fellow tenant had a boyfriend who would pull up and lean on the horn. One day my acquaintance had enough. He went up to the rooftop deck and dropped a cinder block on the car. Boyfriend exploded out of the car looking for the perp. But he stopped leaning on the horn. This was presented as true. I make no representation. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.